61. 54 West 33rd Street, New York, 21st March 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, I am astonished to hear the scandals the Ramabai circles are indulging in about me. Don't you see, Mrs. Bull, that however a man may conduct himself, there will always be persons who invent the blackest lies about him. At Chicago, I had such things every day against me, and these women are invariably the very Christian of Christians. I am going to have a series of paid lectures in my room downstairs, which will seat about 100 persons, and that will cover the expenses. I am in no great hurry about the money to be sent to India. I will wait. Is Miss Farmer with you? Is Mrs. Peake at Chicago? Have you seen Josephine Locke? Miss Hamlin has been very kind to me and does all she can to help me. My master used to say that these names, as Hindu, Christian, etc., stand as great bars to all brotherly feelings between man and man. We must try to break them down first. They have lost all their good powers and now only stand as baneful influences, under whose black magic even the best of us behave like demons. Well, we will have to work hard and must succeed. That is why I desire so much to have a center. Organization has its fault, no doubt, but without that, nothing can be done. And here, I am afraid, I will have to differ from you, that no one ever succeeded in keeping society in good humor and at the same time did great works. One must work as the dictate comes from within, and then, if it is light and good, society is bound to veer round. Perhaps centuries after one is dead and gone. We must plunge heart and soul and body into the work, and until we be ready to sacrifice everything else to one idea and to one alone, we never, never will see the light. Those that want to help mankind must take their own pleasure and pain, name and fame, and all sorts of interests, and make a bundle of them and throw them into the sea, and then come to the Lord. This is what all the masters said and did. I went to Miss Corbin's last Saturday and told her that I should not be able to come to hold classes any more. Was it ever in the history of the world that any great work was done by the rich? It is the heart and the brain that do it ever, and not the purse. My idea and all my life with it, and to God for help, to none else. This is the only secret of success. I am sure you are one with me here. My love to Mrs. Thursby and Mrs. Adams. Ever yours in grateful affection, Vivekananda. 62. 54 West, 33rd Street, New York, 11th April 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, I am going away to the country tomorrow to see Mr. Leggett for a few days. A little fresh air will do me good, I hope. I have given up the project of removing from this house just now, as it will be too expensive, and moreover, it is not advisable to change just now. I am working it up slowly. I send you herewith the letter from H. the Maharaja of Khetri, also enclose the slip on Gurjan oil for leprosy. Miss Hamlin has been helping me a good deal. I am very grateful to her. She is very kind, and I hope sincere. She wants me to be introduced to the right kind of people. This is the second edition of the Hold Yourself Steady business, I'm afraid. The only right sort of people are those whom the Lord sends. That is what I understand in my life's experience. They alone can and will help me. As for the rest, Lord help them in a mass and save me from them. Every one of my friends thought it would end in nothing, this my getting up quarters all by myself, and that no ladies would ever come here. Miss Hamlin especially thought that she or her right sort of people were way up from such things as to go and listen to a man who lives by himself in a poor lodging. But the right kind came for all that, day and night, and she too. Lord, how hard it is for man to believe in thee and thy mercies. Shiva, Shiva. Where is the right kind and where is the bad, mother? It is all he. In the tiger and in the lamb, in the saint and sinner, all he. In him I have taken my refuge, body, soul, and Atman. Will he leave me now after carrying me in his arms all my life? Not a drop will be in the ocean, not a twig in the deepest forest, not a crumb in the house of the God of wealth, if the Lord is not merciful. Streams will be in the desert, and the beggar will have plenty, if he wills it. He seeth the sparrows fall. Are these but words, mother, or literal, actual life? Truce to this right sort of presentation. Thou art my right, Thou my wrong, my Shiva. Lord, since a child I have taken refuge in thee. Thou wilt be with me in the tropics or at the poles, on the tops of mountains or in the depth of oceans. My stay, my guide in life, my refuge, my friend, my teacher, my God, my real self. Thou wilt never leave me, never. I know it for sure. Sometimes I become weak, being alone and struggling against odds, my God, and I think of human help. Save thou me forever from these weaknesses, and may I never, never seek for help from any being but thee. If a man puts his trust in another good man, he is never betrayed, never forsaken. Wilt thou forsake me, Father of all good, thou who knowest that all my life I am thy servant and thine alone? Wilt thou give me over to be played upon by others, or dragged down by evil? He will never leave me, I am sure, Mother. Your ever obedient son, Vivekananda. 63. USA, 11th April 1895. My dear Shashi, you write that you have recovered from your illness, but you must henceforth be very careful. Late dinners or unwholesome food or living in a stinking place may bring on a relapse and make it hard to escape the clutches of malaria. First of all, you should hire a small garden house. You may get one for 30 or 40 rupees. Secondly, see that cooking and drinking water be filtered. A bamboo filter of a big size will do. Water is the cause of all sorts of disease. It is not the clearness or dirtiness of water, but its being full of disease germs that causes disease. Let the water be boiled and filtered. You must all pay attention to your health first. A cook, a servant, clean beds, and timely meals. These are absolutely necessary. Please see that all these suggestions be carried out in toto. The success of your undertakings depends wholly upon your mutual love. There is no good in store so long as malice and jealousy and egotism will prevail. Kali's pamphlet is very well written and has no exaggerations. Know that talking ill of others in private is a sin. You must wholly avoid it. Many things may occur to the mind, but it gradually makes a mountain of a molehill if you try to express them. Everything is ended if you forgive and forget. It is welcome news that Sri Ramakrishna's festival was celebrated with great eclat. You must try so that there is a muster of 100,000 people next year. Put your energies together to start a magazine. Shyness won't do any more. He who has infinite patience and infinite energy at his back will alone succeed. You must pay special attention to study. Do you understand? You must not huddle together too many fools. I shall be glad if you bring together a few real men. Why, I don't hear even a single one opening his lips. You distributed sweets at the festival, and there was singing by some parties, mostly idlers. True, but I don't hear what spiritual food you have given. So long as that nil admirari attitude is not gone, you will not be able to do anything, and none of you will have courage. Bullies are always cowards. Take up everyone with sympathy, whether he believes in Sri Ramakrishna or not. If anybody comes to you for vain dispute, politely withdraw yourselves. You must express your sympathy with people of all sects. When these cardinal virtues will be manifested in you, then only you will be able to work with great energy. Otherwise, mere taking the name of the Guru will not do. However, there is no doubt that this year's festival has been a great success, and you deserve special thanks for it. But you must push forward, do you see? What is Sharad doing? Never shall you be able to know anything if you persist in pleading ignorance. We want something of a higher tone that will appeal to the intellect of the learned. It won't do merely to get up musical parties and all that. Not only will this festival be his memorial, but also the central union of an intense propaganda of his doctrines. All will come in good time, but at times I fret and stamp like a leashed hound. Onward and forward, my old watchword. I am doing well. No use going back to India in a hurry. Summon all your energies and set yourselves to work heart and soul. That will really be heroic. Yours affectionately, Vivekananda. 64. 54 West, 33rd Street, New York, 25th April 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, the day before yesterday I received a kind note from Miss Farmer including a check for $100 for the Barber House lectures. She is coming to New York next Saturday. I will of course tell her to put my name in her circulars, and what is more, I cannot go to Greenacre now. I have arranged to go to the Thousand Islands, wherever that may be. There is a cottage belonging to Miss Dutcher, one of my students, and a few of us will be there in rest and peace and seclusion. I want to manufacture a few yogis out of the materials of the classes, and a busy farm like Greenacre is the last place for that, while the other is quite out of the way, and none of the curiosity seekers will dare go there. I am very glad that Miss Hamlin took down the names of the 130 persons who come to the Jnana Yoga class. There are 50 more who come to the Wednesday yoga class and about 50 more to the Monday class. Mr. Landsberg had all the names, and they will come anyhow, names or no names. If they do not, others will, and so it will go on. The Lord be praised. Taking down names and giving notices is a big task, no doubt, and I am very thankful to both of them for doing that for me. But I am thoroughly persuaded that it is laziness on my part, and therefore immoral, to depend on others, and always evil comes out of laziness. So henceforth, I will do it all myself. However, I will be only too glad to take in any one of Miss Hamlin's right sort of persons, but unfortunately for me, not one such has as yet turned up. It is the duty of the teacher always to turn the right sort out of the most unrighteous sort of persons. After all, though I am very, very grateful to the young lady, Miss Hamlin, for the great hope and encouragement she gave me of introducing me to the right sort of New Yorkers, and for the practical help she has given me, I think I had better do my little work with my own hands. I am only glad that you have such a great opinion about Miss Hamlin. I, for one, am glad to know that you will help her, for she requires it. But, Mother, through the mercy of Ramakrishna, my instinct sizes up almost infallibly a human face as soon as I see it, and the result is this. You may do anything you please with my affairs. I will not even murmur. I will be only too glad to take Miss Farmer's advice, in spite of ghosts and spooks. Behind the spooks I see a heart of immense love, only covered with a thin film of laudable ambition. Even that is bound to vanish in a few years. Even I will allow Landsberg to monkey with my affairs from time to time, but here I put a full stop. Help from any other persons besides these frightens me. That is all I can say. Not only for the help you have given me, but from my instinct, or as I call it, inspiration of my master. I regard you as my mother and will always abide by any advice you may have for me, but only personally. When you select a medium, I will beg leave to exercise my choice. That is all. Herewith I send the English gentleman's letter. I have made a few notes on the margin to explain Hindustani words. Your obedient son, Vivekananda. 65. 54 West, 33 New York, 7th May 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, I had a newspaper from India with a publication in it of Dr. Barrow's short reply to the thanks sent over from India. Miss Thursby will send it to you. Yesterday I received another letter from India from the President of Madras meeting to thank the Americans and to send me an address. This gentleman is the chief citizen of Madras and a judge of the Supreme Court, a very high position in India. I am going to have 2 public lectures more in New York in the upper hall of the Mott's Memorial Building. The first one will be on Monday next, on the science of religion. The next, on the rationale of yoga. Has Miss Hamlin sent you the book on the financial condition of India? I wish your brother will read it and then find out for himself what the English rule in India means. Ever gratefully your son, Vivekananda. 66. 54 West, 33rd Street, New York, May 1895, Thursday. Dear Mrs. Bull, the classes are going on, but I am sorry to say, though the attendance is large, it does not even pay enough to cover the rent. I will try this week and then give up. I am going this summer to the Thousand Islands to Miss Dutcher's, one of my students. The different books on Vedanta are now being sent over to me from India. I expect to write a book in English on the Vedanta philosophy in its 3 stages when I am at Thousand Islands, and I may go to Greenacre later on. Miss Farmer wants me to lecture there this summer. I am rather busy just now in writing a promised article for the Press Association on immortality. Yours, Vivekananda. 67. Percy, New Hampshire, 7th June 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, I am here at last with Mr. Leggett. This is one of the most beautiful spots I have ever seen. Imagine a lake surrounded with hills covered with a huge forest, with nobody but ourselves. So lovely, so quiet, so restful. And you may imagine how glad I am to be here after the bustle of cities. It gives me a new lease of life to be here. I go into the forest alone and read my Gita and am quite happy. I will leave this place in about 10 days and go to the Thousand Island Park. I will meditate by the hour there and be all alone to myself. The very idea is ennobling. Vivekananda. 68. 54 West, 33rd Street, New York, June 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, I have just arrived home. The trip did me good, and I enjoyed the country and the hills, and especially Mr. Leggett country house in New York State. Poor Landsberg has gone from his house, neither has he left one his address. May the Lord bless Landsberg wherever he goes. He is one of the few sincere souls I have had the privilege in this life to come across. All is for good. All conjunctions are for subsequent disjunction. I hope I shall be perfectly able to work alone. The less help from men, the more from the Lord. Just now I received a letter from an Englishman in London who had lived in India in the Himalayas with two of my brethren. He asks me to come to London. Yours, Vivekananda. 69. 1895. Dear Shashi, I am quite in agreement with what Sarada is doing, but it is not necessary to preach that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was an incarnation and things of that sort. He came to do good to the world, not to trumpet his own name. You must always remember this. Disciples pay their whole attention to the preservation of their master's name and throw overboard his teachings, and sectarianism, etc., are the result. Alasinga writes of Charu, but I do not recollect him. Write all about him and convey him my thanks. Write in detail about all. I have no time to spare for idle gossip. Try to give up ceremonials. They are not meant for sannyasins, and one must work only so long as one does not attain to illumination. I have nothing to do with sectarianism, or party forming and playing the frog in the well, whatever else I may do. It is impossible to preach the Catholic ideas of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and form sects at the same time. Only one kind of work I understand, and that is doing good to others. All else is doing evil. I therefore prostrate myself before the Lord Buddha. I am a Vedantist. Sachidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, is my God. I scarcely find any other God than the majestic form of my own self. By the word incarnation are meant those who have attained that Brahmanhood. In other words, the Jivan Muktas, those who have realized this freedom in this very life. I do not find any speciality in incarnations. All beings from Brahma down to a clump of grass will attain to liberation in life in course of time, and our duty lies in helping all to reach that state. This help is called religion, the rest is irreligion. This help is work, the rest is evil doing. I see nothing else. Other kinds of work, for example, the Vedika or the Tantrika, may produce results, but resorting to them is simply waste of life. For that purity which is the goal of work is realizable only through doing good to others. Through works such as sacrifices, etc., one may get enjoyments, but it is impossible to have the purity of soul. Everything exists already in the self of all beings. He who asserts he is free shall be free. He who says he is bound, bound he shall remain. To me, the thought of oneself as low and humble is a sin and ignorance. Nayamatma balahinen labhyaha. This Atman is not to be attained by one who is weak. Asti Brahma vadasi chedasti, nasti Brahma vadasi chenastyeva bhavishyati. If you say Brahman is, existence will be the result. If you say Brahman is not, non-existent it shall verily become. He who always thinks of himself as weak will never become strong, but he who knows himself to be a lion, nirgachati jagat pinjaradeva keshari, rushes out from the world's meshes as a lion from its cage. Another point, it was no new truth that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa came to preach, though his advent brought the old truths to light. In other words, he was the embodiment of all the past religious thoughts of India. His life alone made me understand what the Shastras really meant, and the whole plan and scope of the old Shastras. Missionaries and others could not do much against me in this country. Through the Lord's grace, the people here like me greatly and are not to be tricked by the opinions of any particular class. They appreciate my ideas in a manner my own countrymen cannot do, and are not selfish. I mean, when it comes to practical work, They will give up jealousy and all those ideas of self sufficiency. Then all of them agree and act under the direction of a capable man. That is what makes them so great. But then they are a nation of mammon worshippers. Money comes before everything. People of our country are very liberal in pecuniary matters, but not so much these people. Every home has a miser. It is almost a religion here. But they fall into the clutches of the priests when they do something bad, and then buy their passage to heaven with money. These things are the same in every country, priestcraft. I can say nothing as to whether I shall go back to India and when. There also I shall have to lead a wandering life as I do here. But here thousands of people listen to and understand my lectures, and these thousands are benefited. But can you say the same thing about India? I am perfectly at one with what Sarada is doing. 1,000 thanks to him. In Madras and Bombay, I have lots of men who are after my heart. They are learned and understand everything. Moreover, they are kind-hearted and can therefore appreciate the philanthropic spirit. I have printed neither books nor anything of the kind. I simply go on lecturing tours. When I take a retrospective view of my past life, I feel no remorse. From country to country, I have traveled teaching something, however little, to people, and in exchange for that, have partaken of their slices of bread. If I had found I had done no work, but simply supported myself by imposing upon people, I would have committed suicide today. Why do those who think themselves unfit to teach their fellow beings wear the teacher's garb and earn their bread by cheating them? Is not that a deadly sin? Yours, etc., Vivekananda. 70. 19 West 38, New York, 8th July 1895. Dear Alberta, I am sure you are engrossed in your musical studies now. Hope you have found out all about the scales by this time. I will be so happy to take a lesson on the scales from you next time we meet. We had such jolly good time up there at Percy with Mr. Leggett. Isn't he a saint? Hollister is also enjoying Germany greatly, I am sure, and I hope none of you have injured your tongues in trying to pronounce German words, especially those beginning with SCH, TZ, TSZ, and other sweet things. I read your letter to your mother from on board. Most possibly, I am going over to Europe next September. I have never been to Europe yet. It will not be very much different from the United States after all, and I am already well drilled in the manners and customs of this country. We had a good deal of rowing at Percy, and I learnt a point or two in rowing. Aunt Jojo had to pay for her sweetness, for the flies and mosquitoes would not leave her for a moment. They rather gave me a wide berth, I think because they were very orthodox Sabbatarian flies, and would not touch a heathen. Again, I think, I used to sing a good deal at Percy, and that must have frightened them away. We had such fine birch trees. I got up an idea of making books out of the bark, as was used to be done in ancient times in our country, and wrote Sanskrit verses for your mother and aunt. I am sure, Alberta, you are going to be a tremendously learned lady very soon. With love and blessings for both of you, ever your affectionate, Swami Vivekananda.